welcome everybody to our celebration of the Together 2025 Open Exhibition. I'm Ju Gosling, Artistic Director of Together 2012 CIC. I'm a white woman with pale olive skin and green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I'm wearing a grey trilby hat over a self-styled henna crop, a turquoise blue short-sleeved shirt and silver-coloured jewellery. We have British Sign Language interpretation tonight from Chris Burrow and live captions from Global Real-Time Captioning. You can access the captions using the button on the Zoom screen, which is usually on the bottom towards the right-hand corner. And if you would prefer to stream the captions, there's a link in the chat. This is the 14th of our open exhibitions and the 6th that we're hosting online. That would have seemed impossible when we launched our first exhibition at the pop-up East Side Community Heritage Gallery in Stratford in summer 2012 to celebrate the Paralympics. Now our open exhibition takes place every July as part of Disability Pride Month, with the support of Arts Council England and the National Lottery Community Fund. The Together Open exhibition is unique because we invite eligible artists to self-select one family-friendly work for guaranteed inclusion. Amateur, community, student, semi-professional and professional disabled artists are all welcome to take part, so long as they identify as having a connection with Newham and/or with Together 2012 CIC. 62 artists are represented this year, including some who've produced group works with a total, I think, of 56 images. We use the social model of disability, which includes people with learning difficulties, people with long-term health conditions, including mental health, people with additional mobility needs, visually impaired people, people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and neurodivergent people. All of us face similar social, environmental, and attitudinal barriers which impact on our ability to take part in the arts. The exhibition has been curated by our club's programme leader, international installation artist Alison Marchant, with support from the rest of the Together 2012 team. I'm delighted to welcome Alison together with Rebecca Kavanagh from the Art for Fun group, and I'm hoping that Lorraine Peacock from Enough will be able to join us in a little bit. Together, we're going to look at the exhibition and tell you more about it. If you have work in the exhibition, we will ask you if you would like to tell us anything about it. And you can also put comments and make points using the chat box. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll have a tour of the exhibition.
Okay.
So when you land on the exhibition webpage, this is what it looks like. And just a brief exhibition telling you the things that I've already just said. But I just wanted you to see what it looked like if you haven't seen it already. And then I'm the person who has the honour and privilege of hanging the virtual exhibition. And when I do that, I very much use the same principles that we used to use all of those years where we would hang it in the libraries, the town hall, dockside, the town, the council headquarters in the Royal Docks, the hub. We tried to take each exhibition to 2 or 3 different venues, and it was always a big thing getting the pictures together, cycling around as well as driving around. Now everybody's producing digital images that has all of its own challenges. So it's all actually very, very similar. And we try to group things together in the same way that we would have grouped things together in the venues. So, but I like to start with a particularly striking image. And this is not the Endo, and it's Call Me Disabled. I know that you're with us tonight, and I just wondered whether you wanted to say something about this, Helen.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for putting it first. When I first scrolled down, it was such a surprise to see it. Um, so it's based on one of the poems that I wrote and I read, I think I must have read it at the poetry club. And it was inspired by a headline that I'd seen that said, "Don't call me disabled." And I can't remember what it was talking about, but it really struck a chord with me, and I I don't want that personally. I want um as disabled, and that from that feeling came this poem, and then I wanted to show that in the exhibition. And it was really funny, the photograph that I imagined is not the final one that I ended up with, but I took this photo. This is a ring that I actually wear. um and I took this photo and was like, yep, that's it, that's the final photo. Yeah, and that was it really. I feel like it really works together.
I think it's very, very clever. And just finally, technically, how did you produce it?
It's a photograph. I took the ring. I took these are sweet peas that I got from my garden and were just sitting in a jar. And when what I originally planned didn't work, I just put them on the table, and I had a black blanket like propped up on a chair, and then was just taking photos at different angles. And the crown is a ring, and I just hung it on the stem of the flowers.
I think it's a wonderful example of what I always think, which is if you've got the imagination and the creativity, you don't need a studio.
Mm.
No, that's so true. Yeah.
And I really like the composition, the way the flowers cut through at an angle, and the little crown ring is almost in the center, and you've got the text at an angle to the flower.
I
Yeah.
think it could so well it couldn't be AI because AI wouldn't think to do it. But it's so cleverly done.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Helen. And then now I don't think Sean's with us tonight, but I thought this followed very nicely. Was there anything you wanted to say about this, Alison?
Um, it's got text with it, which is like I think it's a poem. I don't know if we should look at
Well,
that.
that's a really good point while we're still at the start of the exhibition. What we want everybody to be able to do in a way that's actually much easier than it was for me as a wheelchair user in a venue is you can get close up to all of these pictures. And not that it's a very good example of me at the moment because I can't actually do the things that I would want to be doing. But yes, there we go.
Yeah, it's a sequence of images of a hedge being cut, and it says, "Our back hedge, 400 years old, if it is a day, needs a trim least. The field maple becomes a tree, the hawthorn and the blackthorn become weapons. The estate handyman takes pity, speaks to him with a tractor, an industrial cutter, and clears it with the landlord, and clears it with the owner of the yon field behind, and a flat top is given. There are chains of kindness and chains of ownership, but they are not the same thing. And then there is the hedge. Everything has to be unlearned, unmapped, to be remembered. And our back hedge is worlds within worlds."
Thanks, Alison. That was a lovely reading. And Sean's one of the artists well, one of many artists who's worked with us over the years. So it's great to have some of our artists contributing as well. And this indeed is Alison Marchant's piece. And please do say a quick word about this, Alison.
It's the petticoat that my aunt made, and she was visually impaired from being a child, and she made it by touch. And it's so perfectly made. I couldn't make anything that nice. And just suspended on the washing line with the movement, it gives a sense of presence.
It's really beautiful. I didn't realise that history, although I've seen the image before. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. This is actually a photograph by our apprentice, Ben, who's not with us tonight. But I don't know if everybody can see, but you have the traditional crossing, and then you've got the man standing and the wheelchair user is able to cross.
Yeah, I thought it was a Photoshop image, but actually it's part of a public art project by TfL. So the artists got those images made.
I think it's so interesting, isn't it, that none of us assume that this is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's either got to be photoshopped or it's got to be an art project, but goodness, they couldn't possibly. And indeed, I think it's actually quite typical, because I certainly remember in Stratford, as a wheelchair user, there's never enough time
No.
road. And yes, well, we can all dream, can't we? So now I believe, am I right in thinking this is an art for fun image, Rebecca?
No, it's a new person who's joined us, and she's joined the poetry group. But this is a really nice kind of logo about the social model of disability.
It really is. Let me just click on. So we've got a close up again, just so that people can see that. And I just think it's so well done with the pink triangle as well. It's just absolutely full of meaning. I'll just skid past this one, which is mine. And it's a photo of a rock that I came across that's about the size of a baby's head. And it's very, very pink. And it just looked very fleshy to me. So I just took a quick close-up photograph with my phone. And it's called Flesh Made Stone. But I very much like land art. And I think over the years, I've just come to doing less and less that involves making things, and more that involves a kind of very light touch on the environment, or nothing at all. And it was just coming across it and thinking this would be a found object if only I could pick it up.
Yeah, and it's got a kind of gash in the middle of it as well.
Yes, I wish I knew more about rocks, but I think it's volcanic. But I put it there because of the pinks. I think there's always different kind of motivations for why you put something somewhere. Now, this is Layla's, who's one of our team. And Layla, did you want to say anything about this?
Oh, hi. It wasn't really, it was just a series of paper cuts I did, because I'm kind of just really interested in burial mounds and standing stones. And it was just a series that I did with a few others called Paper, Scissors, Stone. Yeah, and it was just kind of about the balancing act between like kind of nature and kind of modernity, which is why it's got these funny little sort of like square shapes. And yeah, so nothing massively deep, just something I like, I'm quite interested in.
I really like it as well. I think it's got loads going on. So thank you for that explanation, because yeah, I think it just adds to people's pleasure looking at it.
Yeah.
Now, this is art for fun, and I absolutely love it. Rebecca, would you like to say anything about this?
Yes, this was a collage piece from one of our workshops in patterns.
Oh, sorry,
And I
Rebecca,
like,
we're getting some interference on your audio. I don't know if there's anything.
can you hear me now? Is it okay?
It's still it's still breaking up a bit, but it might be worth just moving slightly further away. I don't know whether that would help.
Hold on, let me try. Is that better?
No. It isn't really, but keep speaking and maybe things will improve.
So this was a collage piece made from magazine cutouts, and it was part of one of our pattern workshops. And what I really like is the use of like the oranges and the blues and the scheme and like the inspiration from the tribal patterns and how the piece just works.
And I love the way the headdress sort of bursts out of the picture at the top. You know, it's like the whole thing is just escaping the paper and escaping the page. And I think this was possibly from the same workshop.
Yes, I believe it is. Let me just double check my notes. Yeah, this was another. It was the collage workshop again, and this was made from paper cutout. And I like the use of shapiness and the bright colours as well, and just the experimentation within the piece.
Absolutely. Rebecca, we've still got really bad sound from you, and I really want to hear what you've got to say. I don't know if anybody's got any tips that they think might be happening with the sound. I don't know if you're using an external microphone, Rebecca, sometimes just unplugging that might help.
Okay, let me. What I'll do is
Okay, so we'll carry on and then hopefully Rebecca will get slightly better sound. So I'm going to come back to the other one. But this is Duncan Bridgestock from, I believe he would have produced this with Enough, Alison?
That's right. And he does abstract works which are based on jazz music. And you can see how this piece is sort of jumping around because in the center you've got the black and white, which is like positive and negative, and all the different colors on the outside framing that and how they interact with each other. And he did an exhibition with us called Because I Felt Like It. That was a few years ago now, a solo online exhibition.
Yes, and that was all cutouts, wasn't it? It was all collages from domestic recycling cutouts. I love the way that he's now using paint and making similar shapes with the paint. You know, I think he's very, very clever, and I haven't seen any of his work for a while, so I was so pleased to see this coming in through Enough.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great explanation about the rhythms and the jazz. I didn't realize, but now you've said that, it all makes sense. So we've got another collage here from Art for Fun. I think Rebecca's still sorting the sound out, but do you want to say something about this, Alison?
Just like a really lively landscape and sort of abstracted, you know, in the form of lines mostly and verticals and horizontals.
Yes, one of the things I really love about it is it's like you're looking at it from different angles at the same time. It's like you're looking at it from above and you're looking at it from in front. And somehow those two things have been brought in together, and at the same time they've managed to add these grasses, you know, grasses and plants as well as the painting. I think it's very, very clever. Every time I look at it, I get a sense of not disorientation exactly, but I feel like I'm being almost flown in a drone around something to see the different angles at the same time.
Yeah,
Almost kind of cubist in a funny kind of way.
yeah.
And this is another paper mosaic from Art for Fun. I think, yeah, and I think it is really fun.
Mm.
You know, it's very much Easter eggs because it's eggs of different sizes. But it reminds me, I've got a collection of eggs that people have bought me over the years of papier-mâché eggs that have been decorated, and I think, I don't know, it really reminds me of those kind of papier-mâché. Oh, Rebecca, you're back.
I also like how there's like different patterns. So you've got a larger at the top, and then they're all like different sizes, but they've all got the same type of pattern, but they've changed the color. And like one on, I think it's, I can't tell my left from my right, but I think it's on the left hand side. One of them looks like the planet Earth. The one in the middle looks like the stars in the sky. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think the framing around the edge is very, very clever. There's a lot, you look at it and it looks very naive, and then you look at it again and there's so much more going on. I think I don't know, Rebecca, if you got any kind of microphone plugged in, because if you have, I would unplug it.
No, I haven't, unfortunately, and I haven't got any other device, so I'm kind of stuck with this setup, unfortunately.
I think, yeah, well, if you don't hear the same problems on the recording, it's because I've managed to sound filter it. And don't worry, we will have captions anyway. It's the usual irony. Rebecca's sound was absolutely fine during the sound check. And is this an enough piece, Alison? I'm not sure where this piece is from, or is it another Art for Fun
I
piece?
think it's the Art for Fun, Rebecca.
No, I don't think it is.
Oh, it must be from Enough, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Lorraine's been able to join us yet. I just really like the way that somebody, yeah, I think it's a really good reworking, you know, of found, if almost like found images and collaged together.
Yeah, it's interesting to just have such an abstract piece and then put pictures of birds in there. It works really well.
I would have it as a calendar. I don't know whether there's something about it, but it's just, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because it's an unusual, you know, the things that have been put together are really unusual. Now, this is by one of our Youth Together members, Alia, and I know Alia's with us, but I don't know, Alia, would you like to say anything about this? It's an iPad drawing, which I think is very clever. And it has Alia's name in a very stylized way in the middle.
Yeah, it's like a piece of graffiti art.
It is, it has all of those elements. And I think one of the things that I find really striking about so many of these images is that they're so multi-layered this year, and there's so many different things going on. Now, this piece was a late entry from Margaret Spence, who many of us will remember, and indeed know still, but when we were at Vicarage Lane Community Centre, Margaret was also the volunteer manager there. And this is this is the full moon at North Woolwich. And it's just, in fact, it's taken on her Together phone, so a refurbished, not very expensive phone to start with. And I think it's so evocative. You would sort of know it was the Thames anywhere.
Yeah, it's really atmospheric with the moon, and then you've got that, I don't know if it's an old lamp that's not working, and then the moon picks up all the light on it. Looks like a barge going past, or at least maybe one of those ferries, and the two skyscrapers in the background, the lights from there.
And I think the Thames is such a powerful river, and you know, such a famous river. To see the Thames at full moon, where it at a point in Newham where it's very, very wide, I think yeah, I really was so pleased to see that. In fact, Margaret sent me that image on the phone, and I said, you must put it in the exhibition.
Yeah.
And then we have another moon piece, and this is by Jemima Hughes, who is a, you know, we're very happy when Jemima takes part. Jemima is also an animator and filmmaker, and this is about the phases of the moon with tissue paper. And what I really, really like about it is, although Margaret has this beautiful picture of a strong full moon, mostly when I see the moon, it's got very fuzzy edges. It's behind a bit of cloud. It's behind, you know, the sky's a bit hazy. I very rarely see the moon where it has that sort of hard, clear edge. And what I think is so lovely about doing these with tissue paper is you have that impression of the moon as it is so often, so it's clear, but there's still enough cloud up there somewhere. Did you want to say anything about it, Alison?
Yeah, and it's really delicate, and I love the layering and the texture of the piece.
And I love the colours behind as well, and the way it looks. It's a starry sky, but of course it isn't, because you've got all of the moon's phases, so it's another of those ones where you've got sort of different views almost superimposed. But after I'd put the exhibition together, I looked up at the moon one night and I thought, oh, it looks just like Jemima's collage.
Yeah.
And this is from our very own Kate Rollison. And I did actually promise that we weren't going to be picking on team members to say anything, but I might just ask anyway, Kate, if you wanted to say something very briefly about this.
Sure. So this is based on a poem I wrote about a frog who sort of comes to greet you, and he's specifically not a prince that you kiss, but he's more of like a frog friend. And I made it with sea glass, which are the dark green bits on his body, collected from my local beach, and then pebbles that I've collected from there in my garden and various other places I've been to.
It's really lovely, and I think it goes so well. And then this painting is by our very own Sarah Hughes, and Sarah curated the very first Together 2012 open exhibition with me and carried on co-curating, I think probably up until we moved online. And in that time, Sarah cycled miles and miles and miles and miles across Newham, weighed down with pictures, and also very patiently drove my van around to pick up pictures and helped frame. So I'm so happy to see this. Sarah had just started doing these much bigger pictures before the pandemic hit, so this is actually a meter square, and you can see where she's joined pieces together to make the bigger piece. And it's called Signet Ring, so you've got that play on words of the signets in the ring with the mother. And Sarah wanted to be known that this painting is for the victims of war and its displacement. So yeah, it's lovely to have Sarah with us. I'm sorry she couldn't join us this evening, but it's great to have the picture. And then this is a really fun collage from, appropriately enough, Art for Fun. If you wanted to say something about it, Rebecca.
Yeah, so it's a college, and I think it's a bit of a mixed media, but it sort of looks like a fish, like a green fish sort of. And I like on the anchor there's like shadows and how the bubbles are like small and colourful, and how bright the piece is, and the sense of movement, how dynamic it is within collage.
Yes, I mean that's the thing. It's another one that looks very simple, but is actually very carefully composed. And I love the way you've got the yellows repeated in the chain and the bubbles and the eye, and the red repeated in the fish and the bubbles and the anchor. And I think, as you were saying, Rebecca, the shadow really adds to it as well, because it gives it that sense of depth and sort of coming towards you. And there's a story. You don't know what the story is, but you think, okay, so there's a shit that something is anchored there and the fish is swimming past, what's going on? And you never get any further than that. But there's a real story there that sort of draws you in. And this is another very fun one. Is this Pritesh from Act Up?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's kind of quite kitchen carnival influenced, because they look like egg cups. That those little boxes that you get eggs in, and he's joined them together to make this caterpillar.
Yes, I mean, I love the fact that we've always had some 3D objects in the exhibition, and it's great when people make them and photograph them and send them in to show online. you know, and like you say, it really kind of echoes our ethos, which is, you know, you just use what you have around you. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be expensive materials. You can just cut something up, stick a couple of things on, and there you are. So here's something completely different. This is Tony Malone's Dreig's garden, and Dreig is his puppy. It's actually, I think it's going to be a very, very big dog, because as you can see, it's quite a big puppy. And Tony designed our logos for us. So again, Tony's been with us since 2012, and it's been great to have Tony put this in. It's a lino cut print on rice paper. And it actually, I think it's that whole thing of digital images where you're not quite sure of the size. It's actually smaller than you'd think. It's 5 inches square. Did you want to add anything about that, Alison?
Yeah, I like the composition. He's using the rule of thirds where the page is divided up into 9 squares and the dog is slightly to the right of centre. And then you've got all the plants framing it. I really like the graphic look of it.
Yeah, I think it's super. So now, I don't know whether this is art for fun or enough, but I absolutely love this landscape. Do you know anything more about it, Alison?
No, I don't, but I like all the mark making in it and the way the tissue paper is used. Yeah, I like it. I like kind of abstract pieces.
Yeah, it's got so much energy and so much movement, and at the same point, you can tell what it is.
Yeah.
You know, so there's stories there. You just again don't know.
I think that is an art for fun piece. And what I can tell you is it's very mixed media and it's a landscape.
Yes, and I think it, and as I was saying, you know, you can tell it's a landscape, but you can't tell exactly what's happening, but you know that there's all sorts of things going on. And I found it very, very striking. It really drew me in. And I think this is another art for fun landscape, isn't it, Rebecca?
Yes, it's.
Did you want to say anything?
I know it's a collage, and I like the earthy tones and like the texture of the sky and how it contrasts with like the cliff face.
Yeah, do you know, I tell you what else it reminded me of, and I don't know whether this could even have been an influence on the artist, but if you, I imagine it looks different now, although of course it may not, but certainly during 2012, if you drove, if you like, ran to the wrong side of the athletes' village, you had this sort of huge, what looked like a huge cliff face, but was made up of nothing but tower blocks, all next to each other. And that to me, on the one hand, looks like it's got ploughed fields and trees that might even be in South America, because this one looks a bit like a cactus. But at the same point, that really reminds me of the back of the Olympic Park in
Mm.
2012. And I don't know why, but from the moment I saw it, I thought, yes, this is an East, you know, this was produced by somebody in East London.
Mm.
This is by our very own Julie Newman, and it's called Summertime. It's a little bit difficult, perhaps, to see on the screen when I'm screen sharing, but it's a track. This is a tractor that I think she's looking at it over a hedge, and it's about to do something like baling. I don't know enough, and that's a ruin in the.
Yeah, derelict croft in the background. And she took about 20 shots to get this image. So,
Yes, I think one of the things Julie wanted to say was it's just about, for some things, it's about taking the opportunity, just photographing something when you see it, which I think is probably pretty much what I was saying about seeing the pink rock.
mm,
And this is so now we're on to, well, I suppose we're already in a sort of more of a nature section, but I'm moving on to some flowers and still life. This is by Susan, who I think is an Art for Fun member.
Yeah, so this was from one of our still life workshops, where we was looking at painting flowers. And I like the focus on one singular rose, and how it's just so bold.
Yes, and again, I think it's all what we see in it, isn't it? But there's a sort of almost like a wing feeling here, like the flower could almost take off. And then on another level, you sort of think, well, it's almost like a figure because those are like four limbs and that's like a head, but it's a flower. But if it had been, I think if she'd called it a flower fairy, I would have believed her. And then this is another, I think this is by Rosemina's still life, I think is another from the same workshop series, Rebecca.
I would say so. And at the bottom of it, it looks a bit like a peacock that's like sprouting flowers, and I just love the imagination behind it.
Yes, I mean, Alison, did you want to add anything about this one?
I quite like it. It has a very textile-y look about it, like I could imagine it printed on fabric.
Yes, do you know, I thought exactly the same. I could also imagine it as an embroidery. No, but it's very delicate in its own way as well. Now, this is by Pippa Marshall, and I know we have from Together Art Club, I know Pippa's with us tonight. Did you want to tell us a bit more about this, Pippa? Because I really love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed making this piece. That was one of the reasons why I chose it. Just the joy I felt while I was creating it. It was from one of the still life sessions, and it was probably the first time that I kind of felt confident enough to kind of make my own composition from it. And also when I started to feel more confident with the paint, I've always wanted to be able to use paints, and it's kind of the first time that I felt like I was really getting into it. And I just, yeah, I really enjoyed creating it, and I enjoyed playing around with the palette as well.
Well, you should definitely be doing more, but I think it's absolutely lovely.
Thank you.
And here's another art for fun still life collage. And I love the gingham and the kind of overlay that you get, sort of the connections that you're getting here. Did you want to say anything about this, Alison or Rebecca, or both of you? I mean, I love them. This flower is almost taking off. You've got wings again, and this is almost taking off, and the sun's really going. There's just loads and loads of movement in there. And I really like as well, I don't know whether this is sunlight or whether the petals are different, but you've got the sort of yellow at the edges. And I think, in the same way you've got the sort of greens around the sun, I think most people would have left that yellow and left that red. And it works so well with the extra colour.
I mean, what I like about it most is that it's just a lot going on both texturally with the patterns. Like with the sun, as you say, it would just be like a block of colour, but not only are they experimenting with colour, they're experimenting with shape. It almost looks like a mosaic, even though I know it's a collage.
Yeah, I think it's very, very successful. And this is Ruby, who I think is also art for fun. And I think possibly we've seen both of these still lifes separately, and then here they are together, which I think also works really well.
What I can tell you about this piece is it was made with felt tip. And I think the fact that Ruby was able to get so much colour, and again with the patterns, you look at the flower on the right hand side, and then like how that's been put to the page, and then on the left hand side there's lots of dots, and the ability to do that with felt tip is astounding to me.
You're absolutely right. I'm really pleased you brought that up. I mean, I know we've got Glory Sengo with us tonight, who's worked a lot in felt tip, but I don't think felt tip is something that we've seen a lot of recently. When we were operating in a venue, we used to provide all the art materials, and then you know, I think felt tip were very much part of it. But it's interesting, isn't it? And I don't know. Well, indeed, here we go. Glory Sengo, very, very timely. So these are actually coloured pencil. But I think, Glory, that possibly you're using it in a way that's quite similar to felt tip. Did you want to say anything about these, Alison?
Yeah, I like the way he's actually cut round them and put them on, mounted them on black. I think that really works.
Yes, and I think it, you know, we've seen some other examples of that, haven't we? Where just by doing these extra things and cutting things out and layering them, it just gives it all so much texture and richness. And then I do really like this. This actually reminds me, it reminds me of a painting I can't remember the name of all the artists. So perhaps, yeah, my memory could be better, but this actually reminds me of quite a famous painting, although it's completely different. Did you want to say anything about it, Rebecca? Because we just have it credited as an Art for Fun member.
Yeah, so this was again, it was made with acrylics on paper, but it's sort of reminding me of a Vincent van Gogh painting with the way the brush strokes on the paper. I like the use again of the oranges and blues because they're like opposites in the colour wheel and colour theory works. And it just creates such a striking image. Like there's two blues within that one portrait, and then the striking line with that separating the two photos as well. Yeah, it's just a brilliant piece.
It really is, and I think it's interesting that you talk about Van Gogh because this is acrylics, but you're right, it's picking up colours from a complete, you know, from completely different types of paint. Did you want to add anything, Alison?
Yeah, I think it's really atmospheric with that dark interior with a little still life, and then you've got that really vibrant one, and it does remind me of a famous artist, but I can't think who.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, hopefully we're thinking of the same person. Now, I think we all really enjoyed this one by Renee Wallen, who's our social media lead. Renee, I know you're with us tonight because I've seen your name. Do you want to tell us anything about this?
I was inspired to do this painting after a still life session when we were talking about Frida Kahlo. So Frida Kahlo was a disabled artist who lived 100 years ago, very famous for her self-portraits. The reason for that is that she spent a lot of time in bed and she was painting herself in a mirror. She also is famous for her very bold, bright flowers. So I've put her here on a computer screen. So it's not a mirror, it's a computer, because I like to think if she were alive today, she would be very happy to join us and be part of our exhibition.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Alison, what would you like to add about the composition?
I just like that doubling where you've got the flowers in the frame of the computer and then you've extended the flowers on the outside so they could almost be wallpaper.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that and the angle. I think the angle is very, very clever as well because it makes you think about the person who's not in the picture, but who's seeing that screen.
Yes.
You know, and yes, I mean, I remember when they had a big Frida Kahlo exhibition at Tate Modern, being surprised at how that actually most of her paintings were smaller than the posters. And of course, traditionally, when you buy a poster and it's smaller than the painting. And then I thought, well, of course, she was you know, she was a disabled woman. She was a wheelchair user. She was working in bed. She was working in her chair. Of course, she wasn't producing huge paintings. And it was actually, I think, very affirming that you don't have to be able to produce these enormous canvases. But yes, and I think that's one of your. Have you been using acrylic paint much, Renee?
I hadn't used it for a long time, and this has motivated me. So
Well,
since I did this painting, I've done a few other paintings.
well, good. And yeah, I love the way the flowers have come out there as well. And like Alison says, with the doubling.
Thank you.
So this is an installation by Marcella Rick and Wilsey. Marcella is part of our team, and Wilsey is an artist who's worked with us. Marcy, did you want to say anything? I know you're quite busy pressing buttons and so on back behind us.
I can just say this was a DIY arts event where my friend made a puppet and I made the set that we're kind of playing within. Sorry, the ice cream van's going off. But yeah, I submitted it because I was just really proud of this event and I had so much fun creating it, and I thought you could tell that through the picture, so that's why I thought it'd be nice to add.
You certainly can tell that there's a lot of fun going on there, and I think, you know, anything DIY art. Now, this is another photograph. So this little series is more documentary photographs. Robin, also known as the artist Angry Fish, I know I saw your name earlier. So did you want to tell us anything about this?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry I'm late, people. Some things happen. Yeah, I mean, I've as yet to discover my drawing capacity. So I thought I'd go through my pictures to try and find something that I felt demonstrated just enjoyment and coolness. I mean, the younger blonde one in that picture is 30 in about 3 weeks, believe it or not. So, which is really scary. But this was at the V Festival in 2004, which we went to.
I think we've got it credited as 2024, and I thought, I'm sure that's a relative of Robin's.
Yeah, that being Josh. No worries. And then so that's Josh and Tracy. And that's interesting. You'll see we're not on the viewing platform, which says a lot really, and is what inspired the song Far Q, spelled FARQUEU, just for clarity. And the experience of accessing outdoor festivals. But as you can see, Josh and Tracy seem to be having a lovely time.
Well, there certainly seems to be a lot going on there. But yes, I thought it was an older photo, and that was nice because, you know, we've always included in the exhibition as well, you know, work where people say, well, actually, I'm not able to do this anymore, but I used to, and we've been able to say, well, is there something you'd like to show us that people you haven't shared before? So that's always lovely. I don't think Zilla is with us tonight, but do you want to just say something about this, Alison?
I think it's just a really nice, delicate, warm portrait of probably a friend.
Yes, I mean, I think it's very delicate, and sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things about this. It's powerful because it hasn't, you know, it's not dominant. It's not got lots and lots of lines in it. You know, it fills the page.
Yeah, and she's just concentrated on the features.
Yes, and it really you really hone in because of that, don't you? Which is great.
Yeah.
Now, I think Michael might be a member of the Enough Art group.
Yeah, he is. And I mean, this is called All the Rage, and it just does look really angry using those like vibrant reds and stuff, and how the portrait is looking straight at the viewer.
Yes, it's very much it's not necessarily confrontational, but they're not going to back down. I
Yeah.
love the way, again, this is another one with lots of felt tip, although it's also credited as felt tip and acrylic paint. So I'm not quite sure how much of it's acrylic and how much of it's felt tip, but I think it works very, very well together, and it's got a real street art feel.
Yeah.
Which indeed, in a way, so does Alia's iPad drawing that we saw earlier. Now, here's another lovely landscape by Art for Fun. And I really, with this, just get that sense of how much the landscape undulates. And, you know, I mean, I come from Essex, so I'm used to thinking that the land is flat. But actually, of course, it isn't mostly. And I just think this has got so much movement in it. Is there anything you can tell us about it, Rebecca?
It's not much more than you've already said, but it's a painting, so it was probably used with either watercolour or acrylic. No, not identifies are. So yeah.
Yes, actually, now you've said that, I can see the water, but I also, it feels like where you've got the blue, you've also got the river flowing. And I think it works very well with this one from Steraplergia, which is called Swimming.
You really get the sensation of swimming from this one, the splashing and the movement. It's quite simple, but it really works. You feel like you're the swimmer.
Yeah, Stera's been developed, well, I guess, for at least 15 years, but you know, Stera's been developing this style, and I think it works very, very well. And I think I would probably know one of Stera's paintings anywhere, which is always a good sign, isn't it? Now, I'm not sure whether this was art for fun. I think this is art for fun, Rebecca, or was it enough? I love the way that there's just so much movement in this. It's like leaves blowing in the wind. It's like a whole pile of leaves has suddenly been blown up into the air.
Yeah, it's very optical. It reminds me of Bridget Riley.
It's very clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to me, this is an art for one piece that it was again done with paint. It feels like feathers and like some sort of like animal texture because the movement's not going in one way. Like you see the corners, they're all going one way, and in the middle, it's going another.
Yeah, it's very, very clever. And I love the movement. So here's another art for fun landscape paint on paper, but again has all of that movement in it. And I think it's extraordinary, really, that people can sort of sit in a still room and conjure up all of this wind and weather. And yeah, I think it's, you know, I really enjoyed all of the lands. Well, in fact, I enjoyed all of the work. But
I mean, that one reminds me of a Turner, you know, Storm at Sea or something.
Well, absolutely, but with brighter paint for the 21st.
Yeah.
And I think this is possibly one from the same series. And again, I thought, you know, you're mark making in one colour, and yet it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favourite pieces, actually. It's just so vibrant and quite simple and minimal, but it works really well.
It really does. I'm going to move on so we don't run out of time. But this is another art for fun landscape. And I really like the colours in this because they're not the colours that I would associate. And yeah, again, and I think they work really well in this group. These were paper sculptures, and it reminds me a bit of Pritesh's caterpillar. You know, it's taking ordinary things and turning them into little sculptures, and it's a paper sculpture on a 10-inch paper plate, so it's really quite small and delicate.
Yeah. Yeah, these are gorgeous, aren't they? The gold pots and the gold painting.
And I think, is it air dried clay, Rebecca?
Yeah, so this was done with air dry clay, and what we had to do was we had the lumps of clay, and then we used the pottery tools to scoop out the clay from the inside. So instead of, you know, sculpting clay with your hands, you're sort of going from the inside out and then cutting patterns onto the outer layer of it and then painting it.
It sounds like a great workshop. I think, yeah, that's so interesting. And they actually look very East Asian, don't they, in terms of
Yeah.
colours and the techniques. And now for something completely different. I know we have Homer with us, but I think so this was this one of your still life workshops, Alison?
Yeah, yeah. I like the title actually, Slip
I
of
love the title, Rose Slipper.
And it also reminds me of Tracy Fiddle's work, you know, very flat
And I think
patterns.
yes, let's get down to traces in a minute. To me, those slippers are dancing, and it doesn't surprise me that it's been done by Hummer because Hummer dances. But it's just the way that one's in front of the other, and this foot sort of coming, and it's like the foot's crossing in a dance. So so I like. I know it was a still life, but I actually think it's got a lot of movement as well. And this is Faisal, Welcome for Tea, which I think is so puts that whole story into the still life, doesn't it? You know, you're welcoming somebody in for tea. It's not just a teapot and a cup, and it's not about having a drink for yourself. You're welcoming somebody in. I like the colours. I think it's very delicate.
And also, he really caught the shape of the spout. It was really good because it's got quite a strange shape. So he did really well, I think.
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't want it to be geometrically perfect because I think that would just be boring. But I do, yeah, I do like all the shapes and the perspective and everything about it really. And I like the way he's got the shadow in as well.
Yeah,
And then this is another one from the Together Art Club Still Life group, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, Lee's really competent with his drawing. He's been doing it quite a long time.
I like the way that the sort of dominant image is almost in the least dominant place.
Yeah,
It, really keeps drawing you back to those two. So I think we're going to shoot through some of these at the end, but this is Dawn Barber, and Dawn's a member of a whole range of Together clubs, but I think possibly did this with Enough.
that's right. That's with enough. I think Dawn's with us actually.
I don't think we've got time to bring in any other artists, but although Dawn will probably thank me for that in any case, I do really like it, and I think it goes very well with this Matt Russell, Awaken My Nightmare, which I think just verged on not being family friendly, but eventually. So
Yeah, really scary actually.
yeah, so moving swiftly on. So this is Dwayne again. He's a member of the Together clubs, but made this with Enough, and it's a really great kind of mixed media piece called Joy of Creation. And then I was delighted to see Eve Smith again. This is felt pen and pencil producing this, and it's a very interesting angle as well.
Yeah, and she's even managed to write Clark's on it as well on the shoes.
And that just really adds that little bit of detail, doesn't it? So
Yeah,
this is Tracy's that you were talking about. And Tracy, again, is somebody else who's had a solo exhibition with us in the past.
yeah, sort of really flat drawing. It's a slightly different departure from her show. I mean, it's worth having a look at the show she did on the
Yes,
Together.
I think where the link is she's used copy art within this, and she's done.
Yeah,
Tracy's can do all sorts of things, but what she's been doing recently is yeah, these flat drawings with copy art included. And I thought this one went very well. Our very own Nina Coulson with CareBots, which was a sort of vision of social care of the future.
yeah,
It's,
it's
which
scary.
I know it does it? I think it's absolutely terrifying to think that our government is seriously considering these things, but even more terrifying to think that in Japan they're already using them.
Oh my
So
God.
this is our final piece, which says the world is not enough. Stop. And it's by John Simmons, and it's called The Muddle in My Mind, Charcoal on Paper. I thought it was a wonderful piece to end a show with.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I sort of love mark making pieces, and this is one of them.
So amazingly, we've got to it's nearly 8 o'clock. We've got to the end of our event. But before I say goodbye, I'd like to say some thank yous. Thank you to our funders, Arts Council England and the National Lottery Community Fund. Thanks to our access workers, Chris Burrow and Norma McKay. Thanks to Alison and Rebecca for organising the work and contributing so much tonight, and also to Lorraine from Enough. Thanks to all of the artists who've ensured that this is our best exhibition yet. Thanks to the rest of the Together 2012 team for all of their work to make the exhibition a success. And thanks to everyone who is watching. And as it's exactly 8 o'clock, I'm going to say good night.